10 insanely rewatchable classic Who stories. Hello and welcome to this week's video. Now this week I thought I'd just do something slightly different. Just a list, not necessarily greatest or best, though obviously you're not really going to rewatch stories that you don't like, but 10 and again not a top 10, just just 10 choices. I may do another video like this later on because, let's face it, I am completely out of ideas at this point. 10 of the most insanely rewatchable classic Doctor Who stories. Now, I've been a Doctor Who fan for, 37 years now. God, I'm old. And aside from the animations or the Web of Fear Enemy discovery 10 years ago, most of them I saw in the late 80s, in the 90s, no later than like 2004, which is nearly 20 years ago. God, that's depressing. So I've had the opportunity to watch and rewatch many of them, and there are ones that are particularly rewatchable that I've seen time and time again, and I still enjoy every bit as much as I did when I first watched them. So this is my choice of 10 of the most insanely rewatchable classic Who stories. 1. The War Games. I love the War Games. I first saw the War Games, I think it will have probably been 1990 at a guess, when it came out on VHS. It came out along with An Unearthly Child. Now, I like An Unearthly Child. I've not seen it anywhere near as many times as I've seen the War Games. And that shows you how good the War Games is, considering, it's 10 episodes long. It's no small commitment. It's not some 45-minute new poo runaround, that you get over and done with just before you go to bed. It takes some time and effort to watch the War Games and some commitment. So the fact that it's one of my most rewatched Doctor Who stories, that says a lot about how good it actually is. And it is good. It is great. It is a wonderfully epic story. One of the greatest TARDIS teams in their last outing, the end of 60s Who and Black and White Who, the arrival of the Time Lords. It's an amazing story that keeps the attention throughout an astonishing length, simply because of the great writing and the number of the settings, the different settings, the way the story moves, and the sheer number of great guest characters as well. Great one-off characters, some great guest villains. The War Games is absolutely tops. 2. The Invasion. Now this is another one. I saw it, and again I can't remember exactly when. I'm guessing this was probably about 1990 as well. Not the VHS release. I actually got this a really shabby copy of a copy from a friend. It had like a fan text narrating the missing episodes 1 and 4, and I loved The Invasion from the first time I saw it. It's still one of my absolute favourite stories. Obviously, the creme de la creme was getting the DVD release in 2006 with the missing episodes actually animated, which was beautiful. I don't think I never actually got the VHS version. I don't think, because I don't ever recall seeing the Nicholas Courtney links. I know Nicholas Courtney did the links, didn't he? I don't ever recall actually seeing them. Maybe I probably couldn't afford it, and then it probably disappeared off the shelves before I ever got around to it. So all I had for a very long time was, the rather bad copy with the fan narration. So getting to see those missing episodes so beautifully animated by Cosgrove Hall, I'd argue we may not have seen a better animation since. Looking forward to the season 6 on Blu-ray, which is apparently in the works, probably for next year. Love The Invasion. 3. Spearhead from Space. Spearhead from Space might actually stake a claim as the most rewatchable classic Who story, or at least the one I've rewatched the most. Spearhead from Space, of course, the first John Pertwee story, the first 70s story, the first story of season 7, and the introduction of the Autons. Robert Holmes's coming out party, really. I saw this like nearly 1988, I would say. Yes, it was a birthday present I got in 1988. Absolutely love Spearhead from Space. It's probably my most rebought story. You know, I bought it on VHS. I bought the original DVD release. I bought the special edition DVD release. And I bought the Blu-ray release. And of course, I'm no doubt going to buy it again when we get the season 7 Blu-ray set. The Blu-ray is just is absolutely jaw-dropping. If anybody hasn't seen the Blu-ray, I recommend getting it. The picture quality is just holy shit. It looks like a fully gloriously restored HD full budget 70s movie. It absolutely, the first time I saw it was actually distracting. It was so good. Though I got a little more used to it with the last viewing. Yeah, I love Spearhead from Space. It's arguably the Doctor Who story. 4. Day of the Daleks. Again, one of the very earliest stories I ever saw. Christmas 1987. I got the VHS. I got 2 VHSs for Christmas that year. Day and Death to the Daleks. You probably won't find Death to the Daleks on any of these most rewatchable lists. I've never particularly liked that one, to be honest with you. Even at the time, I was like, eh. Day of the Daleks blew me away. It's still one of my favourite stories. I finally have that on Blu-ray, of course. I actually managed to pick up the season 9 Blu-ray set the other week. I actually managed to be able to actually afford it, and there were still some copies going on eBay. There was, even though it was an Australian seller, even though it's not actually gotten a bloody Blu-ray release over here in Australia, because apparently Universal can't be asked anymore. Whether we're going to get a new distributor for the Blu-ray sets in Australia or not, God only knows. You see, this is what happens when A, you cheap out on the packaging, and B, you make it a release 3 months after the British one. And really, there's no excuse for it nowadays. I'm sorry to go off on a tangent. By the early 2000s, we used to have long delays. When I first came here, I think the 3 Doctors took like a bloody year to come out on video. Then it went down to about 3 months. Then at a certain point in the 2000s with the DVD releases, we were like 2 weeks after the UK release. 2 weeks and we'd have it on the shelves. Somehow in the last few years, we're back to 3 months again. Shockingly enough, an awful lot of fans have probably started buying them from overseas. But rather than, the executives at Universal with their great big brains, rather than going, maybe we shouldn't have cheaped out on the packaging, and maybe we should try and get them out at a reasonable pace so that everyone doesn't buy them from overseas. Nah, we'll just stop doing it altogether. What a bunch of assholes. Anyway, Day of the Daleks. back to the point. Day of the Daleks. Love Day of the Daleks. I've never understood why anyone doesn't like Day of the Daleks. It's one of the best written, best acted stories of the entire Pertwee era. It's certainly the best story of season 9, which is probably my least favourite classic season, bar Trial, as I've said many times, I'm sure. I adore Day of the Daleks, and I still remember the spine-tingling reaction I had to the time paradox twist. It's a brilliant twist, and it's brilliantly put forth by John Pertwee. Such a great story is Day of the Daleks. 5. Horror of Fang Rock. Horror of Fang Rock was a story I guess it would have been again. It would have been... No, it would have been... No, it did. It would have been 88, actually. Because, it was one of the first kind of batch of pirate stories that I got from a new friend that I'd made after joining my school's sci-fi club, and I hit him up for tons of stories over the next 3 years. The first batch of stories that I got, which was like one from each pre-Sylvester Doctor, Horror of Fang Rock was the Tom Baker story that I chose. Oh my god, the copy was bad. The copy I had of Horror of Fang Rock, I think it was from the Australian broadcast, clearly several generations of copying down the line. It was so bad it was black and white. It was black and white. And did I give a shit? Nope. I mean, it's hard to imagine watching it now, watching the copies we had, the bad now, because they were so bad, you'd never sit through them now. At the time, I couldn't care less. Loved Horror of Fang Rock. Again, it's another example of how brilliant Terrence Dicks was, how much he understood that show. Tom Baker, Louise Jameson, such spooky gothic horror, thick atmosphere, just such a fabulous start to my favourite era of Doctor Who. I love Horror of Fang Rock. I've seen it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I really want to watch it again. I kind of want to hold off for the Blu-ray, even though God knows when that'll be. But you just know if I watch it tonight or something, they'll announce season 15 as the next fucking Blu-ray. So you just know that. 6. City of Death. I think you have to say City of Death, really, don't you? I love City of Death. Again, this is a very early one I got from a friend. That same friend, like a year later, in like 1989. Now, I want to make, I want to make something clear in the sense that City of Death is a story that, there are some stories like Destiny of the Daleks that I liked on first viewing. I now love them. I now like them even more than I did before. But this is more kind of stories that I've always loved and still do. And City of Death is definitely up there. I mean, Destiny and City were my first exposures to Lalla Ward's Romana and season 17, obviously. Loved them both. City of Death is such a beautiful story, so fun. The production values are so gorgeous. Tom and Lalla are on such wonderful form. It's just, it's absolutely. I want to say like top 5 stories, but it's like then you think of 5 others that you love just as much. It's very difficult, but I adore City of Death. I also have to say, because this makes me laugh, Lalla Ward in the school uniform, obviously very cute, very hot. I didn't actually realise that was supposed to be a school uniform for many, many years. Clearly I'm just deeply thick. I think it was like 10, 15 years before I was reading like Doctor Who magazine or something, and I'm like, oh, that's a school uniform? Really? I just thought it was a cute outfit that she looked really hot in there. Okay. Okay. Whatever you say, peeps. Whatever. I'm always the last to know. 7. State of Decay. Now, this is one I would have got this about 88, 89. Again, we're talking 30 odd years since I saw this story, most of these stories, for the first time. I adored State of Decay. Again, I got it in like I got my friend to tape it in a thing with like Full Circle, which I also really enjoyed. I kind of gone off Full Circle a little bit. I still like it. I find it a little bit on the dry side now, but State of Decay I loved then, and it's top 5 for me. It's one of my absolute favourite stories. Again, it's Tom and Lalla, my favourite TARDIS team. I mean, this time we actually get K9 having stuff to do because he's not in City of Death, obviously. And it's such a gloriously distinctive, original, atmospheric, different yet simultaneously archetypal vampire story with such a great Doctor Who spin on it. It's so imaginative, so gothic. And it's just, again, it's just great to have my favourite TARDIS team in a story like this, because they are more generally associated with the more comedic stories of season 17, and I absolutely love that, and I love that style. But it is nice to see them and show what a great team they are, no matter what kind of fucking story you throw at them. I love State of Decay. And Lalla Ward, again, is, as someone else on a forum once noted, just ridiculously pretty in this. I like that expression. Ridiculously pretty. I like that. 8. God, it's so difficult to choose, isn't it? I'm still gonna have to do another one of these because there's so many. Black Orchid. Black Orchid is one of my favourite Davison stories. It's certainly one of my favourite of season 19, which is not one of my favourite seasons. I just think Black Orchid is such a fun little quick story. It's such an engaging kind of Agatha Christie-esque period piece. And it's so much fun. Now, regular viewers of these videos will know that I don't much like the TARDIS team in season 19. The companions I often refer to as the terrible trio, because most of them can't act their way out of a paper bag. They actually work in Black Orchid. I don't know whether it's the period setting or whether it's just the more relaxed nature of the story, which allows them to not just be arguing at one another. I mean, even Adric is quite funny and likable in Black Orchid. More interested in stuffing his face than anything else. I mean, who can blame him? This story is so good, it even makes that team actually watchable. That's impressive. For me, anyway. It pisses me off that Peter Davison doesn't get this story for some weirdo fucking reason, because apparently he never saw any Hartnell historicals and doesn't realise there has to be a monster, and there didn't have to be a monster in every story. And of course, fandom, being the fucking sheep that they are, suddenly turned on it in the mid-90s when they found this out, because up till that point, up till he opened his mouth, Black Orchid was generally a recognised classic, and suddenly he opens his stupid fucking mouth, and all the fandom sheepy go, yeah, it's not that good, is it? It's like, fuck me, think for yourselves, dude. Jesus Christ. Sorry, I digress. Love Black Orchid. 9. Attack of the Cybermen. I know I choose this story in many different lists, like underrated, but how can you not? I love Attack of the Cybermen. It's one of my absolute favourite stories. It's certainly my favourite Colin story, and it's probably in my top 10. And again, I saw this very early on, 35 years ago. Oh, God. 35. In 1988, it was one of that first batch of stories that I got from that friend. I had a rather better... The picture quality was rather better than Horror of Fang, I have to say. And again, I'm sure I've said this many times. I was inured enough in fandom at this point to know that Colin was the crap doctor and had the crap stories, you know. And then I actually watched Attack of the Cybermen, and it was one of the stories from that batch I enjoyed the most, along with Fang Rock, Black Orchid, and Earthshock. I found it considerably more impressive than the Demons, I have to be honest. Still do. I love Attack of the Cybermen. I think Colin's hilarious and badass in it. Lytton is cool as fuck. He's way better in this than he is in Resurrection. I don't know why. He just is. The Cybermen are incredibly nasty. I love the grittiness of it. It's so watchable. Again, I saw it recently. I think it was last year on the season 22 Blu-ray set. I love Attack of the Cybermen. 10. Got to put a Sylvester in here. Let's face it. But which? Because, I mean, almost the entire era I've rewatched to, you know, apart from maybe Time of the Rani. Which do we pick? Which do we pick? Which do we pick? Battlefield. I'm not going to pick Battlefield just to be random. Because I love Battlefield. I also think it's really underrated and fun. It's probably the lightest story out of season 26, because everything else is a lot more serious, whereas Battlefield it's basically just fun. It's basically just kind of tongue-in-cheek sword and sorcery, action, adventure fun. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful fun. You have one of my favourite TARDIS teams, beautifully complemented by Nicholas Courtney in his last hurrah. Sarah Jane Adventures doesn't count. And he's fantastic. He gets all the best lines and steals every scene he's in. Jean Marsh is a great villainess. The Destroyer is a fantastically impressive monster. And I must have rewatched, well, let's face it, all the McCoy era, but I must have rewatched Battlefield a couple of dozen times in the 34 years. I'm so old. In the 34 years since I first saw it on TV, I can still remember the first trailers for it on TV. God, make it stop. I love Battlefield. Anyway, these are just 10 of my most insanely rewatchable classic Doctor Who stories. I may do another 10 sometime because there's a lot. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Bye for now.